Welcome to the very first episode of Love People, Use Things. My name is Matt Fradd. This is going to be a show for those who are tired of the fantasy of pornography and who are ready for reality, right? Who think that reality is worth the fight. So you might be a young man listening to me or a young woman, maybe an older man or an older woman who struggles with pornography. And you're thinking to yourself, gosh, I keep falling to this thing again and again. Well, this is going to be your weekly shot in the arm that's going to remind you that inner peace is worth the fight, that reality is worth the fight, that love is worth the fight. Now, maybe you're listening to me and this isn't something you personally struggle with, but I promise you, since you're a human being and clearly have access to the internet, that you know and love people who are struggling with pornography and want to be free. This will be a great resource for you as well. So thanks for joining. My name is Matt Fradd, as I said, and maybe you don't know me, but for the last several years I've been traveling the country, I live in the United States, and internationally, speaking almost exclusively on the issue of pornography. Now, if you had have told me when I was 16 that I'd be one day traveling the United States talking to people about porn, I would have asked you what drugs you were on, and maybe if you wouldn't mind sharing. Or maybe I would have assumed that you meant I was singing porn's praises because I was into porn. I thought porn was really cool. I thought that people who were against porn were just stuck up or prudes or just religious nuts or something. But it turns out, right, that there actually was some merit, a great deal of merit to those who were telling us as young people that porn wasn't good for us. You see, for the last 3 or 4 decades, there's been a lot of scientific literature coming out of different branches of science, right? Like sociology, neurology, psychology. And all of it is screaming, right? Screaming. Now, that might sound hyperbolic. It's not. And over the series of these podcasts, you'll see just why it's not, right? All of these studies are showing us that porn's not good for us. Right? That it's not good for us individually, it's not good for our relationships, it's not good for society as a whole. Now, in a way, does that really shock us? I was talking to my wife about this the other day. When you think about how we've eaten in America, or maybe we could say by extension the West, for the last 20 or so years, as we've gradually, moved away from whole foods and began producing our own foods, right? Foods that you could keep in the pantry that never expired, essentially. And we thought this was a great idea, right? Saves you going to the shops every couple of weeks. It's always there if you need it. You can stock up. Now, what happened, though, is we began to realize that there's all these nasty ingredients in a lot of these foods that are really not good for us. Right? The point is, the further we remove ourselves from what is natural, even though it might seem like there's this immediate boon, right? These immediate positive benefits, in the long run, I think we can step back and say, gee, we've been designed a certain way, or we've been made, our bodies are such a way that when we eat like high processed foods or high fructose corn syrup or large amounts of sugar, it's not good for us. All right, now I'm not equating eating unhealthy with porn. I think porn's never okay. I think eating unhealthy occasionally is fine, right? But there's a similar analogy here. Like maybe originally people were saying stuff like, hey, this is awesome. Like now I don't actually have to go and relate to people. Now I don't have to get into relationships. Now I don't have to use my imagination. I can just turn to this magazine. Right. Now I don't even have to be romantic with my partner, with my spouse, like now I can just go and have an intimate encounter with my iPhone. Like how exciting. But now we're seeing what's happening, right? Huge upticks in porn-induced erectile dysfunction in men. We're seeing sexual dysfunction in women who are addicted to porn. We're seeing actual brain atrophy. This came out of the Max Planck Institute. There was a study called The Brain on Porn. The lead researcher, her name was Simone Kuhn, showed this correlation between hours spent looking at porn and shrinkage in the brain. Like we're seeing how it contributes to anxiety, right, relationship breakdown, and so much more. And it just seems like those people in the porn industry that want to keep telling us that porn's fine in moderation and have at it all of this stuff just seems increasingly ridiculous as the science piles higher. And now we're seeing more and more people speaking out about porn. Like, you might not know this, but who would have thought that James Hetfield, the lead singer of the greatest band ever, Metallica, I don't know if they're the greatest band, but they're a very good band, in my opinion. James Hetfield just narrated an anti-porn documentary called Chasing the Cardboard Butterfly. Comedian Chris Rock, in a recent stand-up routine, spoke openly about how porn led to his marital breakdown, led to divorce. You got Terry Crews speaking openly, against pornography. Even Pamela Anderson. Things are bad when Pamela Anderson says this, quote, "Those who watch porn are losers," end quote. Now that is, massively hypocritical maybe, but it's also illustrative that we've reached a tipping point in our culture. Look, this isn't going to be a podcast that shames you, that makes you feel bad. It's not even really a podcast that's going to tell you what to do. Right? You're a grown adult. Do what you want, okay? But here's the thing. I think that it's prudent to have the most information at your disposal before engaging in a behavior or continuing to engage in a behavior that may have deleterious consequences. And that's what this podcast is going to be about. I said earlier that I travel the country and speak to, 50,000 people a year or more. And I was out recently, where was I? A couple of months ago. I was in, this is how much I travel, I forget. I was in Denver, and I gave a talk in Denver, and the talk was sensational. I speak a lot to high school students, right? So there's like 700 teens at this one talk, and this always happens, right? I travel, and the teacher or the principal looks at me with sort of caution and nervousness, as if to say, "This probably won't go well, you should know that." And I always look at him and I have the same reaction. I'm like, listen, this will go fantastic. And I can say that with such confidence because I've been doing this for so long now that what I realized is that teens just want truth, right? They just want the science. They just want the reality, right? They just want an open and honest discussion about something that's not often spoken about in an open and honest way. And the talk went great, and I thought, I've just got to begin running another podcast. I had a podcast on pornography before, but me and the other group, who I think are great, we're in our separate ways. I'm taking this in a different area, a different direction, I should say. And I'm just really excited to be here every week. This will be a shot in the arm for you if you're struggling, as I said earlier. And if you love people who are struggling, which you do, this is also going to help you equip them to live a porn-free life. One thing I want to do at the end of every episode of Love People Use Things is offer a shout out to an incredible group somewhere in the world that's doing amazing work to help people love people and use things. And the group I want to offer a shout out today to is Protect Young Minds. Protect Young Minds. This is I don't know what you'd call it, I suppose an online forum movement, whatever buzz term works, I don't know. Started by a friend of mine, Kristen Jensen. Now, Kristen is one of the coolest people I've ever met. And the way I got to know Kristen is that she wrote a book, which maybe you've heard of. It's called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, Porn-Proofing Today's Young Kids. This is a beautifully illustrated book, right? It's kind of the size of a magazine. It's very beautiful. And it's designed for you, for parents, to read to their children about pornography in a comfortable way and in a way that won't kind of like scandalize your kids or stir up curiosity in them to go type porn into Google or something. So Kristen sent me this book a few years back. I hadn't heard of her. I was so impressed by the book, I reached out to her and got to know her a little. Anyway, this website of hers, Protect Young Minds, is a fantastic resource for anybody who's like, how do I protect my kids? How do I, share, why it's so important to protect your kids with my neighbors who don't seem interested or whatever. So go check out protectyoungminds.org, protectyoungminds.org. That's going to do it for this week here at Love People Use Things. Since this is the very first episode, it was more of an introductory episode. Other weeks are going to be longer than this episode was. So I will chat with you next week. Again, these episodes are going to be coming out every Sunday, so you can start the week off right. So be sure to go to iTunes and subscribe to Love People Use Things and visit us at lovepeopleusethings.fm. That's lovepeopleusethings.fm.